Yeah, what's up? Welcome to episode 166 of Throwback Hoops. My name is Rob Clayton, and I'm joined as always by my co-host and the main man himself, Woody V. What's up, bro?
Listen, I'm really glad you didn't forget to introduce yourself in the intro this week like somebody forgot last week.
You got a bit carried away and didn't say your name, right? But everyone knows who you are, so that was all good. But yeah,
Good to be
how's
back,
the week
man.
been?
Yeah, it's been good, man. Really busy. I had a bit of travel. It's good to be back in Sydney. So yeah.
Nice. Well, I know we caught up a little bit at the NBL1 over the weekend, so we'll talk about a little bit about that later in the show. But a lot to talk about. Before we get into our jerseys, just a reminder to please make sure you like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to your audio podcasts. But yeah, let's start off with some jerseys. Woods, I see you rocking a Kings jersey. Not my favourite team in the world, but let's see who you've got today. Woods is stand up rocking the Sydney Kings, number 14, Biwali Bayles jersey with a nice Celtics hat as well. So wouldn't have thought that'd be the most common Kings jersey there, Woods.
No, I mean there were a lot sold because the indigenous community in Sydney really got behind Biwali when he got selected to play for the Sydney Kings. Good friend of ours, Coach Hesh, was really instrumental in identifying the talent in Biwali when he was young and really nurturing that talent, working with him till he got his opportunity to play at the highest level. And look, the reason I did wear the jersey today was because you did give me a call earlier today and said, look, loved having you at the NBL1. And guess who's coming to play for the next couple of doubleheaders? You know, you're talking about Todd Blanchfield and Biwali Bayles coming to Castle Hill.
Obi Shea as well. You're also a fan of Obi, right?
Obi Shea as well, yeah. So really excited about that. But just wanted to talk a little bit about him. So Biwali was born in Brisbane and then he moved to Sydney in Redfern with his family. And then, look, everyone in the Indigenous community in the area got behind him as the kid that, you know, would get out of there and make a life for himself. And he did initially playing with the Sydney Kings, NBL1 appearances with Mackay, and then I think North Gold Coast, was that right? Yeah.
Possibly. I know he's in the NBL1 North. He's been in the East for a couple of years with Sydney Comets, but yeah.
Yeah, got a year with the Illawarra Hawks, and then most recently got an opportunity to play overseas in the Swedish League. Yeah.
Well, that's where Mirko Jeric was playing as well. Look, he's only just got back here.
Swiss League, my bad.
Okay. Yeah, he's only just played his first NBL1 game of the season last week and had a big game. But yeah, he's getting some overseas work, which is good. I know you've probably got something on there, but do you think we'll see him back in an NBL jersey anytime soon? Because he's still pretty young, right?
Yeah, he's young. The knock on him was some attitude problems in Sydney, asking for court time when he didn't necessarily deserve it, things like that. But by all reports, he came back to Illawarra and really changed his attitude and got that opportunity to play. So you could do worse than have him as your 8th or 9th guy, right?
100%. I think that's a good thing about, I mean, not just the NBL1 East that I cover and he's playing here, but it's all these NBL1 competitions across Australia. It is that good stepping stone. There's a lot of eyes on these competitions now. So even we mentioned briefly Obi Shea before. I mean, he's a local player now. Why could he not, fill the end of a bench role for Perth? I mean, he's a gun rebounder, that guy. And Biwali Bayles is a specialist scorer, right? So both those guys are, could do specialist roles, and that's kind of what you want from a bench role, right? You don't need someone that can do a lot. You need someone that, specialise in one particular skill.
I mean, Obi's an interesting story, right? He had that opportunity with Adelaide, had interests outside of the game that he really wanted to focus on, and all of a sudden now, at 30 years of age, roughly, he's making waves in NBL1. Has he said that he's open to a return to the big show?
I heard that last season. I think he was trying to use this as a bit of maybe a stepping stone this year. So, and look, they're a pretty good team, the Comets. I mean, with a duo like that, that's a pretty dynamic duo for NBL1 standards there. So, yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll see them both back in the league at some stage. And look, they're right under the Sydney Kings, doorstep where they're playing with the Comets and that. Maybe they've got some eyes on them. Without making any of my standard Kings jokes, they do spend a lot of money on the top end players. So they've got to fill some of those, roster spots towards the end of the team there. So maybe one of these guys could fit on. Not sure whether Bayles will go back after the way it ended maybe before, but you never know, right?
I think a place like Cairns, where you go and those guys get given that opportunity there might be a good fit for him, right? Yeah, and look, with the Celtics hat today, obviously big injury for Tatum that really, my heart goes out to him. That was really tough to see. I'm sure we'll talk about it later. So hence me wearing the Celtics hat today.
Good
right?
stuff. I do like that Kings jersey as well. As much as it's hard for me to say that, I do like the colours on that one. So nice. Well, I'm rocking an old school Hawks jersey. I reckon this is probably one you'll be surprised that I'm wearing, because I wasn't a massive fan of this guy, but I just sort of thought about it the other day.
I know whose jersey it is already.
Yeah, maybe I need to show some respect for this guy. So I'll stand up and show you who I'm rocking.
And Robbie's wearing the Hawks number 2 Joe Johnson jersey.
Hey, it could have been either Marvin Williams or Joe Johnson, right? And ended up being the Joe Johnson one. So, funny thing was, I went to get a red Joe Johnson jersey out of the cupboard and realised I had this one as well. I thought, oh, this is one of those stitched Adidas ones that we liked back in the day. So, kind of missed some of those Adidas jerseys. I felt like they were a better fit, some of those ones. So, yeah, people might be a little bit surprised there. So, I should say before I continue, so it's a Joe Johnson white Adidas Atlanta Hawks jersey. People might be a little bit surprised. This was a guy that I pretty much had a love-hate relationship over his time with the Hawks there, which is interesting given his accolades and stuff. So a little bit on ISO Joe. So he played 18 seasons in the NBA after getting drafted out of Arkansas by the Celtics at pick 10 in the 2001 NBA draft. So do you remember who that draft was, Woods? Do you remember the top picks in that one?
Yeah, that was, you said 2001.
2001, yeah.
Okay, so that would have been the year after came out.
Four big guys, basically.
Yeah, so Tyson Chandler, Gasol, that one. Eddie Curry, maybe?
Yeah, yep. So you forgot the number one pick, though. Yeah, you got 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, Kwame Brown.
Kwame Brown,
yeah,
Michael Jordan's mate. Yeah, so that was one of those, it's still that era where teams are really drafting bigs there. So pretty good good draft pick there at pick 10, right? So 18-year career. Played for quite a lot of teams. So he played with the Celtics, Suns, Hawks, Nets, Jazz, and Rockets. He then also went on to have a lot of success in the Big Three League for several years before he actually came back and played a final game last year with the Celtics. Remember that? And I think he played like a 10-day contract with Brooklyn as well. So kind of still bounced around. Just that little stat there, right? So a little tidbit on that. So December 2021, he signed a 10-day contract with the Boston Celtics to return to the franchise that drafted him. They were granted a hardship exception due to injuries. So his appearance came the same night against the Cleveland. His appearance that night against Cleveland marked a 19-year, 305-day gap between his stints with the Celtics, which is the longest in NBA history. So 19 years and however many days I said after he was drafted, he played again with that team. So that's pretty remarkable, right, when you look at that stat there. He made his lone shot in that game, so it made him the second player alongside Dirk to score a basket with the same team at the age of 20 and the same team at the age of 40. So I like that little stat there. So that was his sole appearance in 2021. It would end up being his final appearance of his NBA career. And look, when he played that one game there, it was his first NBA action in 1,669 days. So I guess, never give up the dream there. He'd, been retired and playing Big Three and all those sort of things there, which was pretty cool. So yeah, this last game before that was the 2018 NBA playoffs with the Rockets there. So yeah, 6'7" swingman. He had a really good career, I've got to say. Maybe it's someone... I mentioned the love-hate relationship. It could just be because he was on a lot of money, right? And I used to get a little bit annoyed by how much he was getting paid, but that's not his fault after all. But he had some great runs in those Hawks teams, with Mike Bibby and Josh Smith, my boy, and Al Horford and some of those sort of guys. And he was a great player, right? So accolades, he was a 7 All-Star selections. He played over 1,200 games with career averages of 16, 4, and 3. He also scored over 20,000 points. And guess how much money he earned over his career? It's $220 million. Massive money there. So he's still only 43 years of age, surprisingly enough. Apparently he's never far away from playing in a pickup game and probably making an ISO play, I would have thought. So I'll give him my thoughts on ISO Joe there. Woods, what were your sort of thoughts and memories of him?
I remember him mostly at Phoenix when he had that face injury and he came back against the Spurs and played with that mask on his face and really proved himself. That was that last season where I think it's 2004 or 5, something around that time. His last season in San Antonio. He really learned, that Steve Nash, Mike D'Antoni system. He got to play 1 year, I think, in that system, right? And then
we traded him for Boris Diaw, I think it was, wasn't it? That was how he ended up making it.
Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. Yeah, and he wasn't. He was a highly touted free agent in that summer, wasn't he? He signed as a free agent with us, maybe, right?
Okay, we'll have to fact check that one.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, look, I remember Joe Cool, ISO Joe. He just played with a slickness, right? I really liked him in those early years at Phoenix and Boston even. He played 1 year at Boston at the start, as you mentioned, right? NBA Live 2001, I used him in Boston, right? But obviously the Hawks is where he had his most success. And then some good years in Brooklyn as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you sort of remembered how I had that love-hate relationship with him, right? It's funny because a lot of people were surprised when I'd say that, oh, Joe Johnson, not a big fan of him, which is interesting because it's, yes, he was getting paid a lot of money with the Hawks, but he always delivered. He had some big games and everything else like that. I'm just going to try and find out. No, I was right on that one, Wood. So August 2005, traded by Phoenix to the Atlanta Hawks for Boris Diaw.
Right, okay.
And also a 2006 first-round draft pick, which ended up being Rajon Rondo, which was later then traded on to Boston. So interesting how all these things sort of work out there. He's got an interesting basketball reference sort of page there. He was in a three-team trade in 2018. It saw all sorts of people moving around. I think it was Sacramento, Utah, Cleveland, those sort of teams there. But yeah, pretty interesting one. And maybe a guy we've forgotten a little bit about.
So he got traded for Boris Diaw, and as I recall, him and Boris Diaw teamed up later on in their careers at Utah, right?
Interesting. Yeah. It always seems strange seeing Joe Johnson in Utah. So, yeah, maybe a guy that over time I'll start to maybe like him a bit more. Just at the time I didn't love him, but probably now I can appreciate what he did. Geez, he hit a lot of game winners. If you look at his highlights on YouTube, not just for the Hawks, but pretty much everyone he played for, he was getting game winners all over the place. So, shout out to ISO Joe, and thank you for your service. And like I said, funny enough, I went to get a red jersey, found this one. So, who would have known I had two ISO Joe jerseys? What will I do next with? Maybe I might show a Marvin Williams jersey and I'll really shock you. Or
a John Concac jersey.
No, I'm not showing a John Concac. John Concac and Danny Manning, no. Sheldon Williams is probably up in that list as well. One of the worst draft picks the Hawks have ever made in my years of going for him there. So, nice one. Well, I've got a card of the week. Look, this is a card. I'm sure you've got this one. It's one that I guess it's a classic old rookie card. It's from I know it's from a set that we've opened on the show before. So none other than the first ever Aussie to make it in the NBA. It is a Skybox, Luke Longley, and a freshly graded one. So I've had that card for a while. I've got it freshly graded. Love those cards there. I've got remember the Larry Johnson. They're all sort of that similar sort of picture like that.
We've pulled that card. We've pulled that card.
We have, yeah. I love how on the back it mentions the first player from Australia. And talks about sort of Longley there, and being a Perth guy as well, someone that I've always followed. I actually met him. When would it have been? It would have been maybe mid '80s, I'm going to say, when he was a real young guy in Perth. There, his brother Griffin Longley had a handful of games with the Wildcats, and Luke was there, and just an absolute giant. I remember I met him then. He was this kind of skinny kid back then, Ronald McDonald type hair, and everything else like that. And I remember thinking, geez, this guy's so big. I wonder how he'll end up going, sort of thing. And yeah, the rest is history, right? Just had an amazing career. Chicago, obviously, people remember him there. Also had time with Minnesota, with Phoenix, with New York, and really injuries kind of ruined his career a bit. But some great times with the Boomers as well. But yeah, pretty cool card. I like some of these old school ones. Woods, they're they're different, aren't they? Skybox, there's a bit of artwork in, but they're nice coloured cards and everything else like that. So we have pulled that, you said, right?
We have pulled it, right?
Nice. So had to get it graded. It's a 9. Funny thing with these ones, right? So you could get a graded 8 one of these for about $30. You could get a 9 for about $50. You're paying about $200 for a graded 10 one. So my theory of that is I don't think this card's going to go up in value over the years. You know what I mean? So the difference between getting a 9 and a 10, you're probably best off saving a bit of coin. I would have thought there. But yeah, bit of a shout out, Joe Johnson, Luke Longley, and yourself with Biwali Bayles.
And Australian story with Luke Longley. If anyone wants to go and have a look at it, a great documentary done by the ABC. It'll talk about that whole journey that Lucien had from his time at college through the NBA. Yeah.
Absolutely. Good stuff. All right, well, plenty to talk about as always, Woods. At the time of recording, it's Tuesday the 13th of May, so there's a lot of interesting series going on in the NBA playoffs, isn't there? So we'll start there. Maybe we'll start with the East. Obviously, there's 2 series in each division there. So we'll start off with the Pacers, right? So they've kind of been the team to talk about, the storyline of the Eastern Conference playoffs. So they caused a huge shock winning the first 2 games in Cleveland. Cleveland ended up getting game 3, and everyone was like, oh, this is what we expected before. Pacers just went nuts yesterday. They had a 40-point lead in game 4, ended up winning by 20, a bit of garbage time there. So they're now up 3-1 in this series, and Cleveland look absolutely dead now. Donovan Mitchell may be in doubt for the next game with injury.
Yep.
They've had issues with Garland, issues with Mobley. How shocking has this series been, and should we start believing in this Pacers team?
Absolutely, and this has just dumbfounded me. I had no idea that they would be able to even win that first round, let alone, I mean, Milwaukee obviously had Damian Lillard out and whatnot in that first round, so I mean they got the victory there. But you just got to give credit to the coaching staff and the Cleveland Cavaliers. Obviously started the series without Darius Garland. He's been in and out of the lineup. They've been having I think Mobley might have missed one game, did he?
He missed.
He missed
at least
two.
one. Yeah, Garland missed two. Mobley missed one. I think, and Hunter missed one. So,
and then you've got Donovan Mitchell at halftime getting injured, which is
he's
a
been
real
playing
problem.
so well as well, Mitchell. Right, he was great in that game 3, but yeah, it's an interesting one. Getting injured at halftime is never a good thing.
This team that we saw in the regular season, we have not seen in the playoffs. You know, and they haven't been able to put that group together, and that's really cost them. And you talk about the big men on you look at that last game on Cleveland. You got 21 points from Pascal Siakam, 20 from Miles Turner, another 20 from Obi Toppin, right?
Miles Turner was feeling it in that game at one stage. Man, hitting some massive bombs.
And then you've got 2 from Jared Allen, 10 from Evan Mobley, and then look, basically DeAndre Hunter was not there. 5 points. So the three big
too busy going at it with Benedict Mathurin.
Right, and I'll tell you what. After that incident with Benedict Mathurin, where they got into a fight, and then Benedict Mathurin punched him in the chest, right, and then DeAndre Hunter threw Benedict Mathurin to the ground. Mathurin got rejected. It's been chippy between those two the whole series, right?
Yeah, it sure has been. Yeah.
And then he pointed at his head like, "Look, I'm not getting kicked out of this game. I'm gonna use my head here." Not one field goal after that.
Yeah, he was bringing it up after that. And look, he's someone we've watched for a long time in the Hawks. He doesn't normally get fired up. He's normally a very mild-mannered guy. And I think when you saw that replay, you could see that it was a close fist punch. There wasn't much in it, but I had to admit I laughed. I sent it to a few people yesterday how he just basically walked up and just did one of the hardest shoves you'll ever see, which was funny there. And ended up not getting ejected, which shows that he was obviously the retaliator there. What about this NBA's most overrated player, as he was voted by his peers, Woods? Tyrese Halliburton. He has just been clutch throughout these playoffs, just putting this Pacers team on his back.
Absolutely. And at the start of the season, everyone was like, is he ever going to find the form before that injury that he had last year? And he was putting up odd numbers, and it took a while for him to find his feet. But I think for him to go into that Milwaukee series against a former champion, show that leadership and take them to victory, right? That really helped. And a lot of those games were tight games, They were challenged, even though it was 4-1, I think it was from memory, was it? Or 4-2 or something?
Yeah, 4-1.
Yeah. Either way, those were tough challenges, tough games, right? And that prepared them for this series against the Cavs. And the Cavs, they're missing Darius Garland, as you said, Evan Mobley. They had a little window of an opportunity here where the momentum's with us, Cleveland are looking a bit injured, and this is an opportunity for us to take advantage of this situation, right?
So the big question, as I said, so I believe the next game will probably be tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Will come out hopefully before that. Is this series over? Do you see Cleveland extending this? Obviously, they're up 3-1. This next game will be in Cleveland. Surely Cleveland can go back home and win a game, right? Or do you think this might be wrapped up on their home floor where Indiana's already won twice this series?
I really think it depends on Donovan Mitchell's health. Have we got note if he's going to be playing tomorrow or not?
It's apparently questionable. So who knows? Yeah, you're right. If he plays, maybe you sort of pencil him in for a win. But if he doesn't play, I don't know where the points are going to come from. Some of their role players, like Ty Jerome's been pretty awful in this series so far. So yeah, and they're not getting points. Like you said, my boy Jared Allen, 2 points in that game there. So you wonder where the points are going to come from. But let's maybe go and say that he's not going to play right. Do you think it's over?
Yep.
And could you imagine that? Pacers in this conference final, they're a healthy team at the moment. Their bench is playing well. Their role players are playing well. TJ McConnell, just an absolute champion.
Ben Shepherd.
Yeah, Ben Shepherd, solid, right? Great to see Furphy getting some minutes as well. I mentioned that in my call of the COE Hills game on the weekend. What a great story that Furphy was playing in the same day for the Pacers in the playoffs.
Let me ask you about Cleveland, right? What a great regular season. This team
64 wins.
Yeah, ready to win a championship. They're built for the championship. Sure, they had some guys out and whatnot, but what's the next for Cleveland? If they lose, if they get bounced out in this second round, are they just going to say, look, we'll just run it all back right away, or do they need to make a few tweaks, right?
I reckon they probably will run it back. I think it was probably a bit of a surprise that they finished with that top record and getting so many wins. I mean, I don't know, we would have probably thought they would have won 20 games less than what they did there, which is crazy to think how well they went in the regular season. I think they can bring it back. I think they've got a pretty good nucleus there. Maybe it's not the best free agent destination. So, you've got a pretty good core. You've got some great big men there. You've got, young up and coming guy like Mobley in the middle there. So I think they probably should and they probably will bring it back. But yeah, maybe you just sort of strengthen up that bench a little bit. They haven't had that quite consistency with guys off the bench. So maybe try and add a veteran piece there that can contribute in a big game, right?
Absolutely. I mean, a guy like Pascal Siakam, he brings that championship mentality to Indiana. He's been amazing, right? Guy like TJ McConnell, who's been around the league for ages, right? You need a few of those guys mixed. But as you said, they've been a bit unlucky with injuries this series. I wouldn't panic too much. their window is still wide open. I'd come back stronger next year and ready to go. Yeah,
definitely. No, I agree with that. Well, let's go to that other series in the East. And hasn't this one been amazing? The Boston Celtics against the Knicks. So, quite shockingly, the Knicks won the first two games in Boston. I think it was a 20-point comebacks in both games.
20, 20, and 14. So they're down by 20 in two games and down by 14 today, right? So
that's crazy, right? So, Boston, essentially doing that in two games at home, you just never see there. So, yeah, as you mentioned, Boston got that game 3. I think everyone was like, Boston's still going to win this series. And then the Knicks, again, today with the comeback, ended up with an 8-point win. So they now hold a commanding 3-1 lead here. Madison Square Garden's been absolutely rocking. They go back to Boston for Game 5, but you sort of touched on it earlier with your Celtics hat there. Tell me about that game and what potentially has happened to Tatum there.
Yeah, look, it looks like something really serious. It was like 3 minutes left. He fell over. And then you just see
injury?
Non-contact injury, right? He was just passing a ball and fell over on the ground. I think but you could see the grimace on his face. He was crying. He was so upset. He knew straight away it was a serious injury and he's out for the series, right? So, and that's why I'm wearing the hat, almost like, shout out to the Celtics, shout out to JT, just one of the good guys, and no one wants to see it. And I've got to say, Jalen Brunson, he rocked up at the press conference after the game, and the first thing he said was, shout out to JT, and just shows how high character he is. And let's talk about Brunson, right?
Yeah.
This cat, like, honestly, in the fourth quarter, he just puts the team on his back. Third and fourth quarter today, he just I mean, he's drawing defenders, making great decisions. You look at that starting lineup, Bridges, Anunoby.
Bridges is huge, isn't he?
These guys, they're
as good a starting lineup. My boy Josh Hart was doing today. He was just attacking the basket and scoring. Cat's been great. Look, I mentioned, when the Hawks didn't end up making the playoffs, the Knicks are going to be the team I'm behind. So I've kind of been cheering them on. There's a lot of guys I like on this team, and I find them to be quite a likeable team there. But I want to throw it back to you, Woods, with Boston, right? They've got one of the highest paid players in the NBA, right, in Jaylen Brown.
Yep.
So can he put the team on his back now and potentially, extend this series? Because like I said, they're going back home, they're down 3-1. Can they at least get that Game 5 and then take it back to New York, where they have won a game already in this playoff series? I think Jaylen Brown needs to put the team on his back and potentially go for 35 or 40 and have some of those other guys step up. Do you think they can do it?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an uphill battle, but I think they can do it. I think this means that they've got to potentially give Torrey Craig or Sam Hauser's been out injured, I think.
Yeah,
so
he's been a bit of a loss. I can't see Torrey Craig getting minutes, in all honesty, because he hasn't played enough big games. Then
probably
maybe you kind of do the Tibbs theory and you just play some of you guys massive minutes. Porzingis is another guy. He's had this mystery little illness there. I mean, they need some stuff from Porzingis. They almost need a 20 and 10 game from him, I would have thought, in this potential knockout game there. And Al Horford and some of these veterans to step up. So you're kind of thinking Boston will win that Game 5 and go back to Game 6 and the Knicks finish it at MSG, maybe?
Yep.
Or do it in front of all those celebrities. It takes about 10 minutes in the games when they show all these celebrities to go through. I mean, that must be the hottest ticket in town, right? I had a mate that, shout out to my mate Garrick, as you know, my mate Garrick, he was in New York for work last week and tried to get a ticket. He said absolutely impossible. So he went to that block party type thing they do with the game there. He said it was just an amazing atmosphere, big screens, people all around. And apparently Latrell Sprewell was there, revving up the crowd and stuff like that. So great to see. Everyone always says basketball's always better when New York is winning. They're looking to head for their first conference finals in, is it 25 years? Was it 2000? I think it was.
Patrick Ewing was playing.
Yeah, and that's a quarter of a century away. They've been
was he playing? Was Patrick Ewing playing in 2000?
In 2000, I don't think he would have been still in the Knicks then. He was off Seattle jersey or something, was he? Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, 25 years ago at least. So I'd like to see him make it. I think it's going to be pretty exciting if they do make it. But yeah, as you said, Woods, we haven't got the exact diagnosis for Jason Tatum yet. A lot of people are assuming it's an Achilles injury, which is very bad if it is that. But either way, I don't think he's going to be playing. But yeah, we'll find out a little bit more once he's had these X-rays and we can update it, next time there. But any more thoughts on that game or the East series before we head over to the West?
No, just really happy to see the New York Knicks. As you said, that the brightness of the lights in New York and the crowd coming in. I actually saw Patrick Ewing so happy. This guy
went
through. Yeah, he probably was. But just to see these guys part of the community, they're getting behind their Knickerbockers. Great.
Absolutely. Well said. Well, let's go to the West. Let's start off with the series that was on today, so between the Wolves and Golden State. So the Wolves are now up 3-1. So, look, Curry's been injured. I don't think he'll be back for this series. This series is a wrap, right? This is over, yeah?
Done, man. It's done. Yeah. And you got guys like Jaden McDaniels playing with such heart, right? And you know, Steph Curry was a big part of everything that they were doing, right? I mean, everything revolves around him. But he'll try to play a supporting act and stepped in. But I just think when it comes down to the depth that the Minnesota Timberwolves have, losing your star guy, it's like take Ant Edwards out of the Minnesota team, right?
Yeah.
And have Steph Curry fit. You'd back the Warriors, wouldn't you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, it's a shame. I mean, Curry's such a likable guy. He was having such a good season. You know, we saw he had all this defense against him in the Houston series and still delivered. So it's a real shame. You know, I think at his age, these I guess soft tissue type injuries you're going to take longer to recover. I think it was a grade 1 sprain, I think it was. So yeah, they're saying about 7 to 10 days, which is basically nearly up now. But you can't afford to bring him back and perhaps, you know, have a really serious injury there. So you wonder, right? I think there is a couple of days break. Do they just throw him back at that game and try and see if you can give him 5 minutes to spark the, you know, the team? I'm not sure exactly what they'll do there, but you know, weird substitution patterns again, as we've mentioned with Kerr and Golden State. Kuminga's gone from not playing to playing and playing really well. Moody basically hasn't hit a shot for about
hit one today.
Yeah, he did. Finally hit one out of the rotation. So yeah, it's a bit hard to know with some of those substitution patterns. You know, your boy Post will start and play 3 minutes and won't play the rest of the game. So some weird things going on there. But yeah,
he didn't even play today, man. Today they started Trace Jackson Davis instead of Post, which I don't understand.
It was massive garbage time. And they kind of came
makes
back.
Makes no sense, man.
Santos and these sort of guys on there. But yeah, this seems
Kevin Knox was on the court today.
Yeah, wow. Shout out to a former Hawk player there. Yeah, this one does seem like it's a wrap. A lot of these teams down 3-1 are going back home, aren't they? Which is interesting. Yeah. I think all three of those ones we've talked about so far are going back home. But I think Golden State will probably, you know, drop that next one and they'll go down 4-1 and Minnesota will be in the conference finals, which is pretty amazing.
Today you could see Minnesota just figured it out a little bit, right? You know, even though it was a 7-point game, they were up by 20 with 10 minutes left, and the Warriors went on a bit of a run at the end. But
have you got 20 minutes now that we can talk about Julius Randle?
Or 31 points today, really fitting in, man. Really enjoying his time there. And I have to say, I got it wrong. And what you said a few weeks ago, I think both sides benefit from that trade. You see, Karl Anthony Towns thriving over there in New York.
Imagine this is the NBA final with Minnesota and New York. That would be classic, wouldn't it, to see these guys, you know, a big pre-season trade, what was it, a few days before the season was due to start, right? And yeah, exactly right. Both these players are thriving. They both, you know, adjusted to their cities. They're both very popular with teammates and fans and stuff. So yeah, but shout out to Julius Randle. Love the way this guy goes about it. Great to see him healthy as well.
I have it in my notes. Talk to Robbie about Julius Randle today, but you brought it up before I could.
Don't worry, I was cheering on his every move in that game today. So yeah, big fan of Randle. Great to see him doing well. So I really hope Minnesota do, you know, go all the way, to that Western Conference final there. They've got a lot of likable guys on there. Ant Edwards really stepped up today, didn't he? He really caught fire in the third quarter, put the team on his back and everything like that. So, yeah, I have a feeling next time we're chatting NBA playoffs, it won't be about Golden State. But the other series, though, that's one that I'm a little bit, not quite sure where that one's going to go. So, OKC and Denver is now tied 2-2. This is the only series that looks like it maybe will go the distance, I'd say. So, 2-2. So, I think when we spoke last, Denver had pulled that upset in game one, keeping that tradition of road teams winning. Look, this is pretty tight yesterday. Denver had a chance to win that one and have that big lead, but it is 2-2 now. I want to start off talking a little bit about the Joker Woods. He's been a little bit down in this series, right? Do you think that's more like the Chet and Hartenstein and those sort of guys? Because his percentages are down, his turnovers are up, his assists are down. He's still, if you just look at the points, rebounds, assists, Joker played well, but he hasn't been that great. He's not hitting threes. What's happening with the Joker?
I think it's less combinations he gets to get out on the floor with. Doesn't help him at all either. You've got 6 guys, right? It's not about the minutes he's playing, but he'd have a few other different combinations to get out there on the court with, right? When you've only got 5-6 guys playing, it makes it easy for the opposition coaching staff to plan because there's not that many combinations that you could come up against, right? They played on a Friday night and then on a Sunday morning, right? You see the Joker coming. They're playing 6 guys for 44 minutes, right? They play on Friday night and then come and play on Sunday morning. You can see there's tiredness in his legs. Not just him, some of his teammates as well. Where you got the OKC team, you guys like Cason Wallace and Alex Caruso, Wiggins. These guys are all coming. 10 guys are coming off the bench, right?
I think they had 3 bench guys in double figures yesterday. Okay, so that's always been the advantage to them, especially against Denver with a weak bench there. But
yeah, Wiggins, Wallace, and Caruso all in double figures yesterday, and then you had Russell Westbrook have an absolute stinker.
He did have a bad game, didn't he? I'm kind of thinking this ends in 6 now. I think OKC will win that next one in Oklahoma City and then wrap it up in Denver. You think any differently there? Or?
No, I just think they won't have the legs. I honestly think Coach Adelman needed to play more guys, right? This makes no sense to me. Okay, 7 or 8 man rotation, fine. Yeah. He plays 6. He gives Julian Strother 2 minutes yesterday or 3 minutes. He gave Peyton Watson like 4 or 5 minutes. Like it's not playing 12, 13 guys like Kerr isn't the blueprint, but playing 6 guys isn't. You got to find a happy balance.
You got to find something in between. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
I must admit, some of these games have been not the best, I reckon, in this series. It's not one of the series I've enjoyed, the most. I've enjoyed, probably... if I'm looking at the 4 series, this one might be the one I've enjoyed the least. But let's hope for some good next games.
Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's had 2 good games in the whole playoffs. I was going back through all the box scores. He's shooting 30% from the field. He's not... How efficient has he been through the regular season? He finds his spots, gets to his locations, and he's shooting the ball at a high clip. We have not seen that in these playoffs, right?
True.
So it's only a matter of time.
Saying that, though, he did step up late in that game.
He did.
Game 4. But
no
you're
doubt.
right. It seems like all the stars are down a little bit. And, look, scoring gets harder in the playoffs, doesn't it? We've seen some low-scoring games and everything else like that. But when they eventually name this MVP, I think they're keeping everyone guessing when it will be. I have a feeling it is going to be SGA, and you wonder if that'll be that extra motivation, for him. I wonder if it'll happen when this series is still on, because that'd be pretty cool, right? Imagine like the Joker thinking he's going to win his 3rd MVP, not winning it, he goes like ballistic in a game 6 or something. So we'll watch that.
They should announce it once the series is over. That would be nice.
Maybe that's their plan to do it. So yeah, it'll be interesting. So that's all the playoffs as we stand now. So we'll have a little bit of a break from that. We do have a special guest on next week, but when we sort of back after that, we'll be able to preview or talk a little bit about the conference finals and our thoughts and everything like that. But yeah, it's going to start to be less games now, right? I know Friday there's no games at all. And we're going to drop basically from 2 games every day to it'll soon be 1 and just 1 a day sort of thing. So probably our work productivity will go up, but less viewing to watch there. So. Well, while we're talking, just before we finish off the NBA, Wood, so I'm sure a lot of people heard that the NBA draft lottery was today. So this is where they do the ping pongs, as they ping pong balls, and as they call it, and basically every team has a certain percentage of winning it. Look, I'll basically start maybe from the bottom, right? So I'll go through it quickly. So San Antonio have got pick 14. They've also got pick 2, so I should say that. Our Hawks got pick 13. So, you never know what you'll get there. We did get Jalen Johnson with pick 20 a few years ago. And then it goes Chicago 12, Portland 11, Houston 10. And then the next patch here, a whole lot of bad teams. So 9 Toronto, 8 Brooklyn, 7 New Orleans, 6 Washington, 5 Utah, 4 Charlotte, right? So that means 3 pretty decent teams are left there, right? It ended up being Philadelphia will be picking at pick 3. San Antonio at pick 2, so they nearly had a chance. And, of course, we all know who's going to be the number 1 draft pick. And Dallas Mavericks got the number 1 draft pick. So they had, I know you mentioned this to me today, a 1.8% chance of landing that number 1 pick. So since they've done these sort of odds in the lottery, it's the 4th lowest odds. So the lowest odds ever was Orlando in 93 with 1.52. Then you had Cleveland in 2014 with 1.7. Bulls in 2008, 1.7, and then the Mavericks this year. And just rounding out that little thing was the Hawks last year. They only had a 3% chance, but no one would have thought they would have got that. Conspiracy theory, Woods, or is this just how it goes?
No way it's a conspiracy theory. I know it's something
everyone
might say it, right?
Yeah.
But it's really interesting that AD got traded from the New Orleans Pelicans to the Lakers, and straight away the New Orleans Pelicans got the first pick. AD gets traded from the Lakers to Dallas for Luka, and Dallas gets the first pick right away. What this will do is, there's been a period of turmoil and a bitter taste in the mouth of basketball fans in Dallas, right? Yeah. This is exactly what they needed to cheer their spirits up. You get Cooper Flagg, you get Anthony Davis, and you say Kyrie Irving maybe returns towards the end of next season. You've got a really, really good team there. You got Gafford and Lively, 2 very serviceable bigs. This team is good, man. Yeah.
I mean, what a score to get him right. If only the Hawks missed out on Wemby the year before, missed out on Flagg this year, and they got Reece Shea, who's solid but not going to be like these two. But what an amazing thing for this team that we're in the conference finals, had all the issues last year with the Luka trade and the public sort of and their fans hating on him. I mean, Cooper Flagg, if what we're hearing is right, Woods, he could be one of these generational players like a LeBron, like a Wemby from what we've seen so far, and maybe one of the best players in this last 25 years of NBA drafts there. So for those that haven't seen him, he's an amazing defender. That's a big thing about him. He can score. He's a big body. He's played with some of those select USA teams over the last probably 5 years, and you hear some of those pros talking about him, just shocked about how good he is already. So a massive score for Dallas there. They're probably season tickets were going to drop heaps, and now they're probably just going to go up to the level they were when Luka was there. So What about quickly on 2 and 3 there? So Spurs with 2, a lot of people saying they might try and go, Dylan Harper or one of these sort of guys. And Philadelphia getting picked 3, I don't mind that there for them. So they probably need some of those lower salary players. Obviously, it's a lower salary to have a rookie there. They've got a lot of payroll on the big guys, but pretty good for those teams as well, right?
Right, and you got guys like Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe, Trey Johnson. There's a lot of good picks in that top 5 or 6 that can be generational talents. So someone like a Charlotte at 4 could get a VJ Edgecombe, right? That would be good, happy for me because they're my second team. So I want to see some of those lower picks and see what kind of impact. Not lower picks. I mean, outside of Cooper Flagg, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, what kind of careers do these guys go on to have? Because you got some top level talent in this draft, which is a change up from last year where we were struggling to find that generational talent, right? So
how do you think Utah are feeling today? So they pretty much blatantly tanked all last season. They had the greatest odds of getting the number 1 pick, and they slid to number 5. And from what I read today, they've apparently slipped in nearly every lottery they've been in. They never really have any luck there. So it just shows you can try and tank and do all these sort of things, and you just don't know what's going to happen, which is maybe a good thing. But yeah, pretty disappointing for them to be getting 5th and missing out on some of that top end talent.
Yep, to give yourself such a good chance to get the first pick, and then it goes to someone with a 1.8% chance, that's a bitter pill to swallow, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, we're looking forward to that draft at the end of next month. And look, we'll just go to some quick hits now. Maybe while we're talking the draft as well, we might quickly start with some Aussie guys there. So we saw the news last week that Ben Henschel and Lockie Ulbrich both worked out for Portland, which was pretty cool there. Henschel's also been invited to the NBA Draft Combine, which is underway now. Apparently there's some interesting stories coming out there of guys getting measured. You know how they measure them without shoes now? So I forget the guy's name, my bad on that one, but someone that was listed as 6'10" in college, and they basically measured him. He's now 6'7", so he's dropped 3 inches there. So a few interesting little things like that, but I reckon that's pretty cool there. So 6 or ex-NBL guys are now nominated for the draft. So we've got Rocco Zikarsky, Malik Lewis, Alex Tui, Isan Almanza, alongside Henschel and Ulbrich there. So really exciting. I know we've talked about where we think these guys might go, and let's face it, we're not experts on the draft or people coming out of college. We don't watch a lot of college until it gets towards the end of the season there, but the draft's on Thursday the 26th of June. We've got guys like Tyrese Proctor as well, Aussie, and Alex Condon from Florida, so there could be a real Aussie flavour in this draft, right? We've got Aussie homegrown guys, we've got guys that we've kind of I guess consider honorary Aussies now, like Malik Lewis and Almanza and those sort of guys. So looking forward to that. Any comments on any of those sort of guys? Alex Tui has apparently measured up really well. He's great wingspan and stuff like that in that draft.
And we've also, look, I think that's really good. It just shows the pool of talent. I saw an interview with Lockie Ulbrich, so I think he's a high character guy that a lot of teams will. It's not just about what you can do on the floor, what kind of character are you? And I think some of the interviews and stuff that Lockie Ulbrich has given. We've also got point guard from Cairns in Golden State, man. Taron Armstrong, yeah. So
can he still be drafted?
No. He's not drafted. He's
so you mean another guy that's kind of there.
Another guy that's making his way in the NBA from the Australian system.
And you can see him sitting behind the bench in those Golden State games, which is cool. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to watch this. I wouldn't be surprised if Condon sort of goes in the pick 20s. I do think Alex Tui's going to end up going first round as well. I think he'll be maybe a similar sort of pick to where Johnny Furphy went last year. And then the other guys, you just don't know, right? It might depend how they go in these pre-drafts. I mean, say a guy like Ben Henschel goes to this combine and just catches fire, and they say, "Wow, this is a big guard sort of thing, young guy, only 20. Who knows? Maybe he might find his way into the second round. It'll be interesting to see."
Did Rocco apply for the draft? Did he?
He's nominated. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to come back here, obviously, right?
Well, I think Rocco will get drafted. I think at that size, I think he will. I think he's shown enough in those junior international games. He's had a lot of scouts watching him over the years there, so I do think he'll get drafted.
But can't he have one more year playing in the pros and go back to the draft if he doesn't get drafted this year?
Yeah, I believe that can happen there. Or he could even withdraw his name. So say if he goes to these combines and the buzz isn't that great there, he could potentially withdraw his name there. But yeah, looking forward to that. Look, we know it's going to be Cooper Flagg at number 1, but looking at some of these Aussie guys, Proctor, Condon, these sort of guys, it's going to be pretty exciting. So looking forward to that. As we mentioned, with some quick hits. So just wanted to quickly 2 little bits of NBL news there. So there's been some rumours that the Illawarra Hawks, the championship winning Illawarra Hawks, are looking to pick up Matt Hurt there from southeast Melbourne there. So if that is true, how big would that be if they could add Hurt to that team?
And from what I'm hearing, that's very close to being a done deal. Obviously, there's their history there from Coach Tatum and him, with Justin Tatum as well, right? What's the connection there? There's some connection there, isn't there?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
But Matt Hurt, Tatum. Yeah.
Why are you checking that, Woods? I mean, wouldn't that be a massive loss for Southeast? I mean, he was the guy that was, I'm not sure if he ended up being second or third in those MVP things. He was in that final three that Bryce Cotton ended up winning there. But he's a great player. I think he'd be even better in his second NBL season as well. So if they could, imagine they could get rid of, who was the third import last year? I'm blanking on his name. The one that was the bench guy. Illawarra's third import.
You're talking about Darius Days?
Yeah, so imagine they could replace Days with Hurt. I mean, that would be a massive upgrade for him there. So we'll see what happens there, though. Any gossip you're finding there? Or
yeah, so he's Duke Blue Devil, man. So obviously the 2019 to 21, he was a Duke Blue Devil, and Tatum was there just a year or two before that. So they've got that connection there through Duke. Yeah.
Well, that would be huge, right? And the only other one as well is Batemon for Brisbane, right? So I know he's a guy you like. So he's, of course, if you're not sure about Bateman, he was the guy that put up 50 last year in that game against Perth. So started the season a bit slow, then put up 50. So it's an interesting one with him. So Olgun Ulick came out on the marketplace and said that he's been told that the two parties have decided to mutually part ways. But then he's also basically said that while he's technically free to sign with another team, the Bullets still maybe have a desire to potentially give him a new deal, like a restructured deal there. So if you're Brisbane, what would you do there? Do you want to bring him back after the way he ended last season?
Definitely. I think what happened is Brisbane don't have a lot of money. They've hired like a grade C grader of a coach, right? They're probably thinking if we opt in, we're going to have to pay Bateman more than we can, right? So they probably renegotiated the contract to bring him back on a cheaper deal. But I think he did enough. He bonded really well with Casey Prather, right? Played really well with Tyrell Harrison, right? You know, I think bringing him back is a good idea. I would bring him back.
Yeah, fair call. I'm just going to very, very quickly touch on this New Zealand versus Boomers series, because I know we've been pretty busy, Woods. We haven't had a lot of chance to watch these, but it was a 3-game series. The Boomers playing, what do they call it? Like the baby Boomers or something like that? Or something, you know, obviously a lot of, you know, inexperienced guys, NBL1 and fringe sort of NBL players in that team. But the Boomers won at 2-1. So they won game 1 in Adelaide, 80-68. DJ and Pepper were both good in that. They won game 2 in the Sunshine Coast quite convincingly, 92-67. Your boy Xavier Cooks was good in that. And then finally game 3 in Hamilton, New Zealand ended up getting a nice win to make it 2-1. They won 106-97. So as I said, Boomers won the series 2-1. Pepper got 28 in that last game, so he was pretty good there. Wanted to ask you about two guys quickly. So your thoughts on Cooks being back and getting some meaningful games, trying to, I guess, redeem the way he ended. And tell me a little bit about this Taylor Britt guy for New Zealand, because he was one of their best players in all 3 games for the Kiwis there.
Well, let's start with Taylor Britt. He'd be 30 years old now, I think. He's been around the blocks. He's a development player with you guys for a little bit, wasn't he?
Wildcats, yep.
And I think it's just about opportunity, right, and getting the right chance. And if his phone rings, right? I mean, why wouldn't he say yes to another opportunity to come and play here in Australia, right?
100%, because he's been playing in that NZBL there. But yeah, he was really good in all 3 of those games. He'd probably say he was their most consistent player. Ruben Tarangi was up there as well. But, you know, Britt got 23 in that last game. Game 2, he had 19. And, you know, so I think he showed his sort of way there. But what about your boy Cooks? You pleased to see him back out there?
Yeah, look, I think everyone's been a little bit harsh on him. He didn't do that wrong. He went out, partied one night, got busted. Big deal, man. He wants to rebuild his reputation in the community, right? But I think everyone's been a little bit harsh on him, like he's a bad person and whatnot. He made one error in judgment. And I think for him to get back into the community and get people's perceptions of him going back to what they were is important for him. So I think to see him out on the floor with his teammates enjoying the game of basketball, which he's really good at, mind you, is great to see. Yeah.
So quickly, NBL1 Woods. So I feel like all I've been doing lately is NBL1. So I did solo game last weekend, then I did a game on Tuesday, I did 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday, and then I've got another game tomorrow night against Hills against
busy boy.
So very busy. But
busiest commentator in NBL1 East, huh?
Oh yeah, certainly. My throat's been a bit sore with all this talking, but you came out on Saturday night, right? So I know you were pretty excited to see the Hills Hornets take on COE. So COE, you know, the centre of excellence, both of those teams beat Hills there. But what did you think about the game day experience and some of these sort of people you saw on the teams that night?
Awesome. And you know, the Hills are doing a really good job of bringing the community in. I actually took a video of one of the games and sent it off to one of my friends, like, wow, you get that much people to come to an NBL1 game? So I think shout out to the Hills and the association for putting on a great night and organizing it really well. But I think having the center of excellence in the NBL1 comp is a great initiative, right? And we've seen it. We saw Furphy with his Statue of Liberty dunk. It feels like yesterday, right? And now he's playing in the NBA, right? We saw a girl, Satya. What's her surname?
Satya Fagan. Yeah,
Satya Fagan. And when I saw her, I saw Johnny Furphy again. I saw someone who's got a long career in the game of basketball abroad. Staring.
Well, I said on the commentary there, I've got her future is WNBA. There's no doubt about it. 16-year-old, got to be 6'3" or 6'4", running the break, can score on both hands, can shoot from the outside. She was super impressive there.
Absolutely.
COE, like Luke Fennell was pretty good. We know he's a DP for Southeast. And look, I'm probably going to butcher their names, but they had a handful of, South Sudanese / Aussie guys on that team that were just, so long. And they also did have a guy who didn't play in that game who's the tallest person I've ever seen in my life, like in the flesh. So 7'4", wasn't playing in that game, but literally the stadium hushed when he walked in, right? He had to duck under every single walkway. Unbelievable. So, it's basically a kid that's that tall already. But, it is a really good product, isn't it? I know I sort of bang on about it a bit, and obviously I want to promote the NBL1, especially the NBL1 East, but it's a great, great game day when you go out there, right? There's entertainment, there's good games there. I did the Albury games on Sunday as well, and they were really good. Some really good players on each team there. And we say it all the time, but get out and support your local NBL1 team. Also, that dunk that Zach Hudson did for Hillswoods that I called the Play of the Year, that's just gone viral, that play. Basically, I'm getting comments from people basically around the world for that. It did get named in their top players this week. And if you haven't seen that, just type in Zach Hudson dunk versus COE. He basically goes down the baseline and just crams it on two people. One of the commentators may have got a little bit excited about that, but hey, you can't blame me. It was pretty nice. But NBL1. And look, as I mentioned, Hills are playing Illawarra. Not this weekend, the next weekend. Blanchfield will be in town. I've already been chatting to him about that. Sydney Comets the week after with your boy Biwali Bayles. So a lot of things to look forward to. I'm looking forward to have you out there. I like when you're out there. Would you rep the pink stuff for Pink Round, which is great to see. And
thanks, man.
I can see you having fun. You're sitting pretty close to the bar, which is always dangerous, but you behave yourself, which is nice. So.
I behave myself.
Good stuff. Right, well, let's wrap things up. So we're not going to do a classic packs this week. We're kind of saving those up. But we'll finish off with a true or false, right? So a little bit of a mix of NBA and NBL this one. But I'm going to start off with a Wildcats player, Woods. So Elijah Pepper is due for a breakout season for the Perth Wildcats. True or false?
Oh, true. Just have a look at some of the highlights of him going up against the New Zealanders and have a look at him in NBL1 and you can see that his game's going to be taken to the next level this year. And
he's averaging 45 a game in NBL1 West, which is, yes, it's NBL1, but he's getting a lot of Boomers game time now. I think I'm not sure if he'll start. I'd love him being that microwave six-man for the Wildcats. Wouldn't he be a good six-man there?
He can take some of the minutes maybe if Ty Webster doesn't come back, right?
No,
he can take some of those minutes, right?
Yep, agree. So a big true for me. I think a breakout season's coming for him. The next one, Dash Daniels will play a huge part for Melbourne United's success this season.
Ooh.
Next star, Dash Daniels, brother of Dyson.
False.
Okay. So you think he'll still play a part, but not like a huge part?
Bit part.
So a bit or big?
Bit part.
Bit.
Like,
No,
spot
enough.
minutes here and there.
Yeah, and we know Melbourne's a deep team there, but I think he's got the talent there. He's been with them, before last season ended, so he's getting a big pre-season under his belt there. But he's certainly got NBA aspirations, Dash Daniels, so he could be pretty exciting.
He could take some of those minutes that Pero Cameron's son was playing in last year, right?
Yeah. All right, nice. So the next one, I guess we've maybe given the answer for this already, but we'll lock it in officially. So if Steph Curry can't make it back soon, this Wolves-Warriors game will be over in 5 games. So I think we're both saying true for that, right? That's probably, especially after today's game. I did write this, we were going to record yesterday, we ended up doing today. So true, right?
I just read it's unlikely he'll be back before game 6.
They need to get up to a game 6, don't they?
Yeah, exactly right. So,
and lastly, for true false, we'll keep it with the Golden State player. So Draymond Green's antics are yet again becoming tiresome.
Do we even need to answer that? It's
true
for everyone, right? Yeah. Everyone on earth will tell you that, right? This guy will never ever learn his lesson. No matter what we say, no matter what people tell him, he's got Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, Steve Kerr, some of the most high character individuals on earth. In his ear telling him to behave, and if he cannot listen to them, he's not going to listen to anybody. He doesn't listen to his mother, right?
He has frustrated me, right? And even when he got that flagrant the other day, he was still swearing at the ref. Anyone else would have been ejected in that game, and the refs just basically tried to ignore him. He was muttering MFers and doing all this sort of stuff, but he doesn't get it, does he? He's just an angry human being. I don't know what the story is with him there. When he can contain it, it is good there, but I think just too many times now, and you wonder whether Golden State will eventually make a call on him, right? I don't know, whether Steve Kerr will be like, you know what, I've just had enough of this guy now. I know they seem to love him internally, although they probably get frustrated by him, but I think his antics are really becoming tiresome. And they're not going to change ever now, though, are they?
The thing is, he's not like that off the floor. From all reports, he's a good human being. Everyone gets along with him. He's a great teammate, right?
Yeah.
It's when he gets on the hardwood and he gets that white line fever. There's a lot of sports stars, not just in basketball, who have that issue.
He's a really good mate with Rudy Gobert, right? They catch up a lot off the court. Or? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so look, I think we agree with all those, which is unusual there. Maybe we shouldn't try and agree all the time because it's good to get that. But we never know what our answers are for that. So yeah, good stuff. Well, feels like we've jammed a lot into the show this week, right? We'll just go to a quick outro though. So as I mentioned at the start of the show, please make sure you like, rate, and subscribe on YouTube or wherever you find your audio podcasts. We can be followed on X at Throwback Hoops. So I'll get this, or Woods will get this Joe Johnson jersey in, this lovely Lucian James Longley rookie card PSA on there, which people love when we put those on there. And obviously Instagram, throwback.hoops, and email address throwbackhoopspodcast@gmail.com. Patreon, the details are patreon.com. You just basically search Throwback Hoops. If you want to pledge a bit of support, we'd love that. Before I throw to you for a final word, Wood, so we were going to have our special guest this week, and there was a bit of a scheduling conflict just due to the Hills Hornets having a replacement makeup type game tomorrow. So we are going to be getting a special guest from the NBL1 East next week, which I'm really looking forward to have her on the show. So that's a little bit more of a clue there. And then, look, after that, we'll go back to normal business there. We've got a lot of playoff stuff to cover. And we're going to get some repeat guests on there. So I'm talking guys like Lee Ellis and sort of other guys that were really popular, friends of ours now that we'd love to get back on there. So stay tuned for that. But, I'll throw it over to yourself, Woods. You're sitting there looking all happy in that Kings jersey there. Give me some comments, some words of wisdom, some thoughts of the day. What do you got?
Imagine if Indiana, New York, OKC, and Minnesota make the conference finals. Those are the 4 teams left standing. What a great story that would be, right?
I'm not sure. Imagine it was Indiana and OKC. I'm not sure the league would be loving that, right? I think they would. What would they be wanting now? They'd be wanting Golden State, New York.
Listen, even Minnesota's not somewhere they want to send an NBA finals, exactly man, right? So they'd want New York in there for sure.
Yeah, New York definitely. And look, I think there's a good chance to get there, which would be amazing to see there. So, now looking forward to see how all these playoff games go. As we mentioned, there's a lot of games going to that Game 5, and we think maybe 3 of the 4 series might end in Game 5. They might not. We might look like absolute, gooses when these games continue. But just wanted to really thank everyone for tuning in. Can't wait to do it all next week. And it's a big peace out from the Throwback Hoops crew.
Peace.